Chapter 11 of the Grell Mystery. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Christine Blashford. The Grell Mystery by Frank Froust. Chapter 11. The man tried to jerk himself free, but the detective's fingers closed tightly about his wrist. "There is no use making a scene, my man," he said, still speaking in French, his voice stern but pitched in a low key. "You are Ivan something or other, and you know of the murder of your master, so come along." "It's a mistake," protested the other volubly in the same language. His words slurred into each other in his excitement. "I am not the man you take me for. I am Pierre Bazard, a jeweller of Paris, and I have my credentials. I will not submit to this abominable outrage. I know nothing of Monsieur Grell. You shall not arrest me." Heldon Foyle cut him short. He had, without the appearance of force, quietly forced his prisoner outside the restaurant and signalled to a passing taxicab. "I am not arresting you," he said, ignoring the protestations of the other. "I am going to detain you till you give a satisfactory explanation of your reason for leaving Mr. Grell's house on the night of the murder." They were on the edge of the pavement close to the cab. Ivan, with a quick oath, wheeled inward and struck savagely at the superintendent's face. Foyle's grip did not relax. He merely lowered his head, seemingly without haste, and as the man swung forward, with the momentum of the blow, jabbed with his own free hand at his body. So neatly was it done that passers-by saw nothing but an apparently drunken man collapse on the pavement in spite of the endeavours of his friend to hold him up. The whole breath had been knocked out of Ivan's body by those two swift body blows. Before he could recover, Foyle had lifted him bodily into the cab. "King Street," he said quietly to the driver, and sat down opposite to Ivan, alert and watchful. "Sorry if I hurt you," he apologised. "It will be all right in a minute. It has only upset your wind a little. That will pass off." Ivan, his hands pressed tightly to the pit of his stomach, groaned. Presently he straightened himself up, and Foyle, calmly ignoring the assault, produced a cigar case. "Have a cigar? I've no doubt you'll be able to make things all right when we get to the station. There's nothing to worry about. You will just have a little talk with me, and as soon as one or two points are cleared up, you'll be able to go." The case was struck angrily aside. Foyle smiled, and although his whole body was taut in anticipation of any fresh attempt at violence, he quietly struck a match and lit one himself. "As you like," he said imperturbably. "They're good cigars. I have them sent over to me by a friend direct from Havana." All the while he was speaking he was scrutinising the man who had been Grell's valet with deliberate care. Ivan was sleek and well groomed, with a dark face and prominent cheekbones that betrayed his Caucasian origin. The brows were drawn tightly in a surly frown, a heavy dark moustache hid the upper lip, and though the shoulders were sloping, he was obviously a man of considerable physical strength. Foyle felt that it was going to be no easy matter to win this man's confidence. Yet he was determined to do so. Beyond the fact that he had vanished when the murder was discovered, there was nothing so far to suggest that he was the actual culprit. Certain it was, however, that he must have knowledge of matters which would prove valuable. If he would volunteer the information, well and good. The detective did not wish to have to question him, for such a course, however advisable it might appear, could be made to assume an ugly look in the hands of the astute counsel, should the man be charged with the crime. Where by French or American methods a statement might have been extracted by bullying or by cross-examination, here it had to be extracted by diplomacy, if possible. Sullen and silent, Ivan alighted from the cab as it drew up under the blue lamp outside King Street Police Station. He passed arm in arm with Foyle up the steps. With a nod to the uniformed inspector in the outer office, the superintendent led him into the offices set apart for the divisional detachment of the Criminal Investigation Department. A broad-shouldered man with side whiskers, who was writing at a desk, looked up as they entered. "Good morning, Mr. Norman," said Foyle. "This gentleman wants to tell me something about the Grell case. Just give him a chair, will you, and send in a shorthand writer who understands French to take a statement." "I shall make no statement," broke in the Russian angrily, speaking in French, but with a readiness that showed he was able to follow English. "It's all a mistake for which you will pay heavily." "Ah, that's just what I wish to get at. There seems to be a little confusion. Perhaps I have been overzealous, but the fact is, Monsieur Bazard, you are wearing a false moustache, and that rather aroused my suspicions, see?" His hand did not seem to move, yet a second later the heavy moustache had been torn from the man's face. He started to his feet with an exclamation. Foyle waved him back to his chair. "I only wanted to feel sure that I was right. Now, monsieur, I want to make it clear that I have no right to ask you anything. If you wish to say anything, it will be taken down, and what action I take depends on what you say." Ivan scowled into the fire and preserved a stubborn silence. Whether he knew it or not, he held all the advantage. Unless he committed himself by some incautious word, there was little to implicate him in the murder. Suspicion there might be, but legal proof there was none. It would scarcely do to arrest him on such flimsy evidence. The Russian police had failed to trace his antecedents, and the Criminal Investigation Department were ignorant even of his surname. He had been known simply as Ivan at Grosvenor Gardens. Foyle tried again, and this time his voice was silky and soft as ever as he uttered a plainer threat. "I want to help you if I can. I don't want to have to charge you with the murder of Mr. Grell." The warm blood surged crimson to Ivan's face. In an instant he was out of his chair and had leapt at the throat of the detective. So rapid, so unexpected was the movement that although Heldon Foyle had not ceased his careful watchfulness, and although he writhed quickly aside, he was borne back by his assailant. The two crashed heavily to the floor. As they rolled over, struggling desperately, the grip upon the detective's throat grew even tighter and tighter. Half a dozen men had rushed into the room at the noise of the struggle, and strove vainly to tear the Russian from his hold, but he hung on with the tenacity of a mastiff. There was a ringing in Foyle's ear and a red blur before his eyes. With a superhuman effort he got his elbow under the Russian's chin and pressed it back sharply. The grip relaxed ever so slightly, but it was enough. Instantly Foyle had wrested himself free, and Ivan was pinioned to the floor by the others. "Handcuffs," said the superintendent sharply. Someone got a pair on the prisoner's wrists, and he was jerked none too gently to his feet. A couple of men still held him. At a word from Foyle the others had gone about their business, with the exception of Norman. The superintendent flicked the dust from his clothes and picked something, which had fallen during the struggle, from the floor. "You admit you are Ivan, then?" he said quietly. The Russian showed his teeth in a beast-like snarl. "Yes, I am Ivan," he said. "Make what you can of that, but you cannot have me hanged for the murder of Mr. Grell, and you know why." "Because Mr. Grell is not dead," retorted the detective smoothly. "Yes, I know that." He counted the rough and tumble but little against the fact that the Russian had now admitted that he knew it was not Grell's body that had been found in the study. Here was a starting point, at least. "What I want now," he went on slowly, "is an explanation of how you came to have possession of these." He held up the thing he had picked from the floor. It was a case of blue morocco leather, and as he opened it a magnificent string of pearls showed startlingly white against a dark background. "These pearls were bought at Streeter's by Mr. Grell as a wedding present to Lady Eileen Meredith," he said. "How do they come in your possession?" "They were given to me by Mr. Grell," cried Ivan. The fierce passion that had made him attack Foyle on the hint of arrest seemed to have melted away. Heldon Foyle's mask of a face showed no sign of the incredulity he felt. He made no comment, but ran his hands swiftly through the Russian's pockets, piling money, keys, watch, and other articles in a little heap on the table. Beyond a single letter, there were no documents on the man. He scanned the missive quickly. It was an ordinary commonplace note from a jeweller in Paris, addressed to Ivan Abramovitch. This he placed aside. "May as well have his fingerprints," he said, and one of the officers present pressed Ivan's hands on a piece of inky tin and then on a piece of paper. The superintendent glanced casually at the impression. "All right," he said. "Take those handcuffs off. You may go, Mr. Abramovitch." The Russian stood motionless, as though not understanding. Foyle wheeled about as though the whole matter had been dismissed from his mind and caught Norman by the sleeve. "Drop everything," he said in a curt whisper. "Take a couple of men and don't let that man out of your sight for an instant. I'll have you relieved from the yard in an hour's time." "Aren't you going to charge him, sir?" asked the other in astonishment. "Not likely," said Foyle with a laugh. End of chapter 11.